The first thing I noticed that morning wasn't the sound of birds or the smell of fresh-cut hay, it was the empty space where my tractor should have been. The gravel driveway was bare, tire marks leading away like a thief's footprints. I felt the heat rise in my chest before my brain even had time to process it. That tractor wasn't just a machine. It was my livelihood, the backbone of my small ranch operation, and the only way I could manage the workload alone since my wife's back injury last year. I called the tow yard first, thinking maybe it had rolled onto the road and the county moved it. No luck. Then I called the sheriff's office. The dispatcher's voice tightened when she looked up the tow order. "Sir, it says here your HOA authorized the removal for unauthorized equipment storage in a residential zone." My grip tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. "Residential zone?" I asked. "I'm on 10 acres of agricultural land. My property isn't even part of their HOA." That's when it clicked. This wasn't a mistake. This had Karen written all over it. HOA president, self-proclaimed enforcer of neighborhood standards, and the most spiteful human I'd ever had the misfortune to live within shouting distance of. She'd been gunning for me ever since I declined to attend her mandatory community meetings 3 years ago. Her latest crusade? Claiming my ranch equipment was an eyesore to her scenic walking path views. I drove to the tow lot in a fury, paid the ridiculous impound fee just to get my tractor back, and found the paperwork signed in big looping letters, Karen's signature, smug even in ink. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold, staring at that signature. She'd crossed a line this time. This wasn't about aesthetics anymore. This was about control. And I wasn't going to let her win. The next morning, I started making calls. First to my buddy Mark, who runs a crane service out of the next county over. Then to my cousin Tyler, whose welding skills could turn scrap metal into sculpture. By sundown, I had the equipment and the crew I needed. The plan wasn't just to get even, it was to make a point so sharp it would cut through every layer of smug Karen had built around herself. The twist came when Tyler showed up with a grin and a piece of news I hadn't expected. Karen's shiny white SUV, the one she treated like a crown jewel, had been left parked behind her house all week, unlocked, while she was busy hosting an HOA landscaping review. Perfect. We waited until the next evening, when the sun was low enough to give us cover but still bright enough for the neighbors to see exactly what was happening. Mark's crane rolled up to my barn under the pretense of delivering roofing supplies. Tyler and I walked over, lifted Karen's SUV with the straps we'd rigged, and ever so gently set it right on top of my barn roof. By the time she came storming out, shrieking like a kettle left too long on the stove, the whole block had gathered. Her voice cracked as she screamed, "Get it down! That's illegal! You can't do this to me!" I leaned on the fence and said loud enough for the crowd to hear, "You towed my tractor off my land. I just thought I'd return the favor, gave your SUV a better view." Laughter rippled through the crowd, and cameras came out. Karen threatened to call the sheriff, but when Deputy Morales pulled up, he barely hid his grin. "Ma'am," he said, "this is private property. Far as I can tell, no laws broken here, just a creative parking arrangement." She sputtered, pointing at me. "This is harassment." Morales's smile didn't budge. "You might want to tread lightly, considering the complaint Mr. Larson filed about your unauthorized towing order. That investigation's already open." Karen's outrage boiled over into something almost feral. She stomped toward me, her face blotched red, her finger jabbing the air like she was trying to pierce me with it. "You think this is funny? You've humiliated me in front of my entire community," she shouted. I didn't move, just let her words hang there until the murmurs from the crowd began to turn against her. Someone called out, "You towed his tractor, Karen." Another voice added, "And he's not even in the HOA." That last one landed like a hammer. Karen's head snapped toward the source of the voice, but it was too late. Deputy Morales cleared his throat. "That's right, ma'am. You've been repeatedly told Mr. Larson's property is outside your HOA jurisdiction, which means your towing order wasn't just petty, it was unlawful." You could almost hear the collective intake of breath from the neighbors. Morales continued, "We've got statements from the tow yard, documentation of the impound, and your signature on the order. That's misuse of authority and potentially fraud. Karen tried to pivot, her voice dripping with false concern. It was for safety. Heavy machinery near the walking path, someone could have been hurt, but Morales shut her down. The walking path in question? Also on Mr. Larson's property. You've been trespassing every time you used it. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The twist came when a voice from the edge of the crowd spoke up. Edna, the HOA treasurer, clutching a thick binder. Karen, I told you not to do this. You drained $4,200 from the maintenance budget to pay that tow company. The board never approved it. She turned to Morales. I have every transaction recorded, along with emails where Karen says she'll make an example out of the tractor guy. Gasps and muttering swept through the onlookers. Karen lunged at Edna, but two neighbors stepped in, holding her back. Morales didn't waste time. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. The handcuffs clicked, and the sight of Karen's shoulders hunched, lips pulled tight. Her expensive sandals scraping against the gravel was the kind of justice you could feel in your bones. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. The silence was its own verdict. Over the next week, the story exploded on local social media. Photos of Karen's SUV perched on my barn roof went viral, paired with captions like, "Parking goals and HOA karma." A reporter from the county paper interviewed me, and I made sure to talk about the bigger issue: how some HOAs abuse power and how neighbors can stand up for themselves. The piece struck a nerve, and suddenly I was getting messages from people in other towns, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Karen's downfall was swift. She was removed as HOA president in an emergency vote. The board, desperate to salvage its reputation, issued a public apology and reimbursed me for every cent of the impound fee plus damages. The sheriff's office confirmed she was facing charges for fraud, trespassing, and unauthorized use of HOA funds. And the SUV? I had it carefully lowered from my barn and parked in her driveway the day after she was released on bail, engine running, keys on the hood. I wanted her to see it and remember exactly how she got there. By the end of the month, the walking path was officially closed, replaced with a sign reading, "Private property, respect your neighbors." People who had once kept their heads down around Karen now waved at me when I passed. One even said, "You did what we've all wanted to do for years." The barn roof has been repaired since, but every time I glance at it, I can't help but smile. It's not just a barn, it's a monument to the day the bully got outplayed. And sometimes the best way to deal with someone who abuses power is to lift them so high they can't ignore the fall when it comes. If someone took what was yours just to prove they could, would you quietly take it back, or would you make sure the whole town saw you put it where they could never reach it?